What's up, guys? Welcome into the Fireside Bears YouTube channel. Usayd Kosciel here, back with another prospect preview interview. This week, we've got Ole Miss's very own defensive tackle, Tariqious Tisdale. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm good, man. Just enjoying life.
And before we get into the action, guys, make sure you're and subscribing to all of our social media platforms, including YouTube. But, this is certainly the time to enjoy life because I think you're kind of entering this phase where you're going from, all right, college all the way to the NFL draft, certainly the next big step. And there's a lot of, I think, fun things along the way. But I think, we got to take a step back. I mean, why Northwest Mississippi Community College? You started there, and then why'd you decide to go to Ole Miss?
So actually, out of high school, I committed and signed with Ole Miss. I ended up being a non-qualifier at high school due to my ACT, and Northwest ended up being like the halfway point between my hometown and Ole Miss. Is why I ended up at Northwest and stuck with Ole Miss because they stuck with me.
So let's talk about your path to football. I mean, have you always played defensive line? And
Mm.
then what did you play first then?
So growing up, I started playing football, say third grade. I was a running back and a safety. And then say about middle school, I was a running back and a linebacker. And then throughout high school, I was my freshman year, I was a running back and a linebacker. Sophomore year, running back, linebacker. Junior year, I moved to DN. Senior year, I played D tackle and running back. So I played offense up until college.
All right, so I gotta ask you a real quick follow-up question then. Do you feel like playing defensive line right now that your experience playing all those different positions just throughout, high school as well as just growing up, do you feel like that certainly helped you become a better defensive tackle?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely helped mold me and develop me to being a defensive tackle or defensive end type guy. So,
So I know you played high school basketball too. How do you think playing high school basketball has helped you just become a better football player?
really, I think my like movement, speed wise, like athleticism. I think basketball was like I'd say a key point. I really thought I was a basketball player before I was a football player at the end. And
All right, so I have to ask you this. I mean, how do you describe your skill set as a defensive lineman? And then is there anyone that you've modeled your game after at the NFL level?
um I wouldn't say I try to model my game after anyone. There is like guys in the NFL that I like to study, try to steal some tips from them or like add something to my game from them, like guys like Miles Garrett and pass rush techniques from TJ Watt, how to play the run like Aaron Donald, just little things like that I just look into.
So, kind of what traits or attributes do you think a defensive lineman needs to possess to be a impact player?
Definitely I'd say speed and strength. Length, I think length is a big deal too as a defensive end. Having been able to play with length, long arms, and keep being able to play with separation.
Yeah, it's certainly important. You see, I think a lot of these top tier, just pass rushers and defensive linemen in general, they all have the ability to convert speed to power as well as just really long arms too. But you know, you played defensive line at Ole Miss, so do you see yourself as a defensive tackle or a defensive end at the next level, or a bit of both?
I can definitely say both, but if I had to play one, I think I'm a defensive end 100%.
So why defensive end over defensive tackle?
Um, really, because most D tackles are sitting in there at 300 plus. I'm sitting here at 280, and I'm a speed guy, so like I feel like my speed and power on the edge is what's gonna help me at the next level instead of being inside. It's definitely gonna help way more on the outside.
Mhm. So, all right, let's talk SEC football because you're playing in the best conference in the country and you're playing against top tier competition each week. Now, for you at Ole Miss, how do you think that that level of competition in the SEC bodes well for you in terms of moving on to the next level?
I'd say playing in the SEC is it's the NFL of college football. So if you want to be developed and be ready for the next level, I'd say SEC is the way to go. Like you're gonna see the best of the best go against the best of the best and be coached by some of the best playing in the SEC. So I think like a motto here at Ole Miss the past 2 years under Kiffin, they had a motto is pro mindset. So like everything we do as pros.
So, all right, you mentioned Lane Kiffin. I have to ask you, I mean, kind of, how do you think you on an individual level have grown under Lane Kiffin?
He's definitely an offensive minded guy, so like he's way more involved with offense. But just like you know, the leadership, the growth, like as a player, I'd say, and just like I said, the pro mindset, like doing things as pros, is something that Kiffin, instilled in me and a lot of other players.
All right, so this one's a Bears specific question, but Chicago hasn't drafted a player from Ole Miss in nearly 15 years. I think the last time the Bears drafted anyone from Ole Miss was '07. But knowing that the Bears are going to be looking for D line help this offseason, lots of turnover, what do you think you can bring to the table in Chicago?
Oh, for sure. Me being a defensive end, speed, power. Being a versatile guy, I can come in and help on third downs, like as a pass rusher inside, and I can move outside, I could stand up, I could do it all, like to help out as a defensive lineman.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting because the Bears, I think, over the last like 6, 7 seasons, they've kind of relied on the same couple of defensive linemen, like in Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman. You could throw for 4 seasons Bilal Nichols in there. And now that group is certain to see some turnover with, not a single one of those three names coming back. But I got to ask you, right? Have you leaned on, former teammates that have been drafted? Have you leaned on them for advice at all of any sort?
I mean, I wouldn't say not. I wouldn't say I land on any of my former teammates, but I got a old roommate from junior college. He's in the NFL and he plays for the Seattle Seahawks. I kept me and him keep in touch, and he's told me how things are, what they expect and stuff like that. So
So, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for you going from Ole Miss to the NFL?
mm, I'd say for one, moving again, the speed of the game, because I know every level the game the speed of the game gets faster. So everything's more upbeat, up tempo, and I think that's going to be the biggest change.
Hmm. So, all right, you've been playing D line obviously for a while now, but how do you feel like compared to when you first stepped on campus at Ole Miss compared to right now? You're getting ready to go to the pros. Do you feel like a more complete player with all the coaching and experience that you've got under your belt?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely say from the time like I go back and look at film from my sophomore season when I reported to my COVID senior year that I'm a completely different football player, a much better football player. I grew into the game. I learned the game better. I know the game. Just so much more that I brought along with me throughout this process.
So you talk about so much more. What exactly do you think you brought on as a football player that changed from, sophomore year to this year?
Size for sure. Like putting on, learning how to eat right, learning how to stretch and use the weight room, the playbook, learning how to watch film and take notes. It's just little things that help me become a better player.
So, all right, I work at a high school and, we got a really good defensive line group, but I got to ask you this one question. Kind of, how do you go about preparing for a game each week and compared from like high school to college, let's say? How has, game preparation and game week just changed?
See, I'd say in high school to when I was in high school, watching film wasn't like a big thing to do on your own. It was something like you did like at practice or with your coach. Or here, when I got to the college level, like we got iPads, so when I went home, I could continue to watch film. So studying film, studying your opponent is something that you do like each week, like up until game time. Like sometimes I'm watching film on the bus on the way to the game. Like it's just so much more like with film and film study.
So, do you think in terms of, college more so it's been a lot more about like obviously the game's physical at every level, but do you think film studies just been more and more emphasized at the college level compared to high school?
Yeah, I'd agree so because I know when I was in high school, film study wasn't was something that was our coaches wanted us to do or forced us to do or even demanded to do. Like in college, like it's something that's recommended by not only coaches but like leaders of the team, like players in position. Like, hey, make sure you watch film. Make sure you look over this. Like, look at these keys. Like, it's so different.
So, let's get back to the SEC here. I mean, who is your favorite team to play and then who is your least favorite team to play?
Um, let's see. I don't even know if I could say a least favorite team because I mean I enjoy playing anybody. Favorite team to play this year would I'd probably say Tennessee with me being from Tennessee. I almost went to the University of Tennessee, so that was fun. Being in Neyland Stadium, so I'd say Tennessee was definitely a fun game to play. Oh, okay. I could say a least favorite would be playing LSU at LSU with the stadium being so loud. But other than that, that's about it.
All right, so I gotta ask you, 'cause it seems like watching just attending one of those LSU games, the one of those home games, seems to be something that every college football fan wants to experience. But kind of, what's the atmosphere like in that stadium in terms of when you're going in for the game? Because I know Ole Miss and LSU just kind of, yeah, they love to go at it, and those are always really good games.
The atmosphere crazy, like stadium rocking. Like we could be sitting right beside each other and not even hear a single word we're saying. Like it's that loud in there. Like you could feel it like shaking in your body. Like it's that loud in at LSU.
So, I mean, let's talk big games for a second, right? But how do you feed off the crowd energy in these big games, and how do you just continue to stay composed and play at a high level?
Really, when I'm on the field, like I don't hear nothing outside of what I'm doing on the field. Like it's crazy to think about, but when I'm in the game, like on the field, nothing. I feel like I don't hear anything.
Interesting. So, this one's more of like, related to just your entire college career, and I think it's one of the tougher questions. But what was the favorite moment of your college career?
My favorite moment of my college career, I'd probably say uh, my first ever career sack my sophomore year against Arkansas at Arkansas. We ain't beat Arkansas in like the last couple years, and I ended up getting my first career sack to force a punt. We get the ball back, score, and go up, and end up winning the game.
So it sounds like you certainly kind of contributed to that victory, right? Always one that is going to end up being something that you'll remember, forever. But got two more questions for you here before we get you out. But, second to last question is, well, I should say really three more questions, right? But second to last question is, what's your life like off the football field? Because I think, for a lot of people, there's this picture that's painted, and growing up an athlete myself, it was kind of, oh, this is who you are. You go to school and then you're an athlete that's pretty much your whole life, especially the higher it kind of gets, the more levels and stuff that you play. But what do you like outside of football, man?
So outside of football, I'm chilling majority of the time. Like me and my teammates, like we come over, we chill, we hop on Madden, we hop on 2K. If not, we're playing Call of Duty. I actually got a daughter now, so now I'm with my daughter, raising her with my girl, spending time with my family. Go back home, see moms. Like outside of football, I'm a huge family person and a gamer. Love the video game.
All right, what's your favorite game of all those? And just on the Ole Miss squad, I mean, who gets the most competitive when it comes to playing Madden?
Oh, we got a few. We got. It's really the D line room too. I'd say the whole D line room. We're all Madden fanatics. Like we are. Oh, I'm the best in the room, or no, I'm the best in the room. Like it's back and forth. What was the other question you just asked?
Other question. Well, that was, well, which is your favorite like video game of like Madden, Call of Duty,
Oh
2K?
yeah, Madden for sure.
Yeah, growing up playing Madden, I mean, that was my go-to. So every time my teammates used to be over at my house, I used to be over at there, or we'd be at each other's houses. It was always like Madden would get so damn competitive to the point where the moms used to have to come downstairs and be like, "Y'all need to quiet down because this is getting a bit too crazy." But listen, last one for you here. There's a whole bunch of high school seniors across the country that are playing college football next year. Whether it's D1, 2, or 3. And I think your story really serves as an impact and as an example of just continue to grind, and you will end up reaching places that people thought you could never previously go. So, what advice do you have for seniors that are going to be playing in college next year?
This is a message not even just seniors, but any athlete in any sport. Like just always believe in yourself, bet on yourself, and never give up on something that you really care about and you really love to do. Like football is something I've always loved and always cared about. I was counted out by many people. So many people didn't believe I could do it or make it to where I'm at today, but I believed in me. I kept my faith in God, and that's it. Like, that's all he wrote. Like God already has a plan for you, and it's already written.
That's some excellent advice, not just for football players, but athletes. But Tariqious, before we get out of this thing, plug your social media handles, whatever they may be, so people can kind of follow you and just keep up with your work.
All right. Instagram T_Tisdale 22. Same thing on TikTok and same thing on Twitter. Same thing T_Tisdale 22.
All right. Thanks so much for being on the show, guys. Make sure you're going ahead and following Tariqious. Great story, great interview, man. Thanks so much for being on, and keep in touch. If you ever need anything, let us know, and you're certainly more than welcome back on here at any time.
All right, appreciate you, dog.
All right, guys. So you know who that was? That was Tariqious Tisdale from Ole Miss defensive lineman. Just a couple quick takeaways before we get the rest of you guys out of here. But like I said, I think as I mentioned kind of throughout the interview, someone that has really grown into the position of playing defensive line. He's also a player that I think has a lot of potential being someone that's like 6'4", 6'5", coming in around 280 pounds. You certainly see his ability to kind of get after the quarterback is something that sticks out on tape. Certainly someone that's humble, has a great work ethic, great attitude, and he's doing a lot of different things outside of football too, just in terms of raising his daughter as well with his girl as he described it. But when we look at this pick in the context of the Chicago Bears, there's kind of something to be said for all this, right? I think what's needs to be said is the fact that the Bears do have a need at defensive line. It's like I mentioned in the interview. Perhaps the biggest thing I think you're dealing with is that there's a real possibility Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks, and Bilal Nichols aren't back in 2022. So what is that going to do for the Bears? I think there's going to be a lot of new faces on this defensive line group. You combine that with some of the impending free agents the Bears have, and we could be looking up here at the end of March going in April with D-line being a completely different need. In terms of scheme fit, I do think Tisdale has what it takes to play that kind of 3 technique that the Bears are looking for. I know that for some, he may not be the impact player that the Bears want, but ultimately when you look at it, I certainly think that Tisdale could fit this Matt Eberflus defense as a player that really is going to come in and could possibly even start off as a rotational guy, but then continue to grow into his role. So, really for Chicago overall, what this is all about is knowing and understanding that he's a defensive lineman who played in the SEC. And like he described it, it's the NFL of college football. You're playing against the best of the best every single week. And so ultimately, that right there, I think, is going to make a really big difference. For me, and I've always kind of been of this opinion that the conference you play in really tends to matter. And in Tisdale's case, playing in the SEC is significant because he's getting an opportunity to play against the best of the best. And, sometimes SEC guys just seemingly have a much easier transition over to the NFL compared to the other conferences because the level of coaching, the competition, and something that really stuck out to me was just how playing in Death Valley when it was Ole Miss versus LSU was very, very interesting because he effectively went ahead and said, "Hey, look, like you don't really feel anything or I don't really feel anything when I'm on the field." And that type, if you can perform in those high pressure situations, I think it bodes really well for you moving forward in terms of how you're going to perform and just your mental capacity in terms of being able to go ahead and play the game, at a really high level in the NFL. And so ultimately, I think when we continue to bring these draft prospects on, Tisdale's someone to certainly keep an eye on and someone that I think can really go ahead. And the NFL continues to move to this kind of speed to power when it comes to its pass rushers and emulating guys like TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, Miles Garrett, certainly something that's really important too for a guy like Tisdale, who I would fully expect to hear his name called on draft day. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it from us. This has been Usayd Kosher. You can follow me on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Usayd Kosher. Make sure you're following Fireside Bears on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Fireside Bears. Make sure you've liked, commented, and subscribed to the YouTube channel. We've got a lot more prospect previews coming your way, a lot more interviews. I think we've got like 15 to 20 of them scheduled total, but good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen, and bear down.